Hi, everyone. Hi, guys. Welcome to a very special edition of Here to Help You, featuring me, Brittany Channer. If you don't know me by now, I'm Here to Help's legal expert or legal advisor, and I say that with quotations, but, I provide legal, advice or just some feedback in the community, because it's always good to have some type of feedback. And alongside me is...
Dwayne, aka Bruce Dwayne.
All right.
Awesome. The entertainment, the comedian.
Now, you've seen him here before on several shows, so I know he's not a stranger. But I know you're asking yourself, where is Simone and Dave? Where are they? Well,
they're on vacation.
They're not really on vacation, but if you don't know by now, Simone and Dave traveled to the UK for the National Peace Symposium. So that is amazing thing for them. We are so proud of you guys at Here to Help. My TCN, proud of you. Caribbean newspaper, we're proud of you. That's such a big deal, and they're gonna have so much things to say when they get back next Tuesday, especially Simone Jennifer Smith this Friday at 12 o'clock on her show In the Now. She definitely will go and get into some details with you guys. But today, running the show is myself and Dwayne, and we have a really good topic for you guys. Sometimes you really like to, have a little bit of fun, but, we're going to be doing something different and going the controversial route, So today we're going to be talking about a controversial topic that is usually not really, it's usually, how would you define it?
Well, it's controversial in Western society. Right?
Absolutely. There's no middle ground, I find. So it's about physical discipline or corporal punishment or beatings, as people in the Caribbean would say. No. But we want to see how corporal punishment affects children today in this day and age, and if it's still even effective to produce some type of desired behavior or desired results. We want to know, how does it shape people? Right? Because it's, like you said, it's very controversial, and it's something that unfortunately we as a people can't find any type of middle ground, whether it's within the law, whether it's within different facets of society. There's been no middle ground when it comes to this issue. So we're going to talk about that today, and we want to hear your thoughts. So when you're online, just feel free to comment, share, subscribe, and tell us your thoughts upon this issue as me and Dwayne banter and we go back and forth. But let's go with our first question, though. So, Dwayne, why do you think it's such a controversial issue? I mean, I remember times where I was, I wouldn't say physically disciplined, but, I had to get put in check sometimes. So why do you think in North America it's such a big deal?
I know the Western culture has a kind of issue with it. North America to even the UK.
Absolutely.
But like places all over the world, from like Africa, South America, the Caribbeans, even Asia.
Yeah.
They use that kind of form of discipline to
kind of produce some type of desired result, I guess.
Yeah. So, and that's where I was gonna come to, and basically share. What's the point of discipline? You know what I'm saying? Why would you discipline somebody? So the definition I actually found for discipline would be, the first one was punishment, a way of making sure that rules or orders are obeyed.
Okay.
The next one will be training that corrects, molds, or perfects the mental faculties or moral character.
Okay.
And then there's the third one was control, gained by enforcing obedience or order.
So this is what discipline is, the very basic definition of discipline.
Discipline. And
okay.
For me, then it actually kind of raised a question in my head to say, so what's the purpose of physically
disciplining a child?
That's
actually a very good question. What Dwayne's saying is that if discipline produces all these definitions, this result, what's the need of adding the physical component towards it? And that's actually a very, very serious question. And I think for the reason why it's so controversial is because there's been a lot of issues in the news, a lot of issues around the world where there's this fine line where people do not know how to separate, just a proper discipline of a child to abuse. And now because of that, you're hearing a lot of stories in the news about children getting badly abused. So this is the underlying this is the underlying subject right here. This is what's happening. This is why we can't find any middle ground, right? But so since people want to bring up the topic of abuse, physical discipline being abuse, I would want to ask you, do you think it's abuse? Because there's different forms of physical discipline. It's just that those one or two people, or maybe a certain amount of people, take it too far and maybe incorporate different forms of physical abuse where it's actually hurting the child, right? So do you think physical discipline is abuse in your opinion?
To an extent. Like, you can't, when you overdo it, it becomes it becomes abusive and actually really violent, right? So, but it's still a violent act to physically hit somebody.
Okay.
To show discipline, right? I remember we were talking about the origin or even history behind
spanking or physical.
So it's one of those things where I would think I actually thought it probably maybe what's that word? A biblical thing where it's like religious.
Yes.
But at the same time, you can think of it as it's been going on before.
Yeah, before the biblical times.
And then,
and
related to like slavery.
Absolutely.
Like how slaves were kind of treated, where, again, as you said, control gained by enforcing obedience.
Exactly.
And making sure order is obtained, right? So, so it's like, when you think about it, it's as like now in like the modern era, it's like you're for anybody to be beaten.
Yeah. For some type of gain.
Yeah.
Seems a bit vindictive, or it seems a bit harsh. Yeah.
Like a little small correction of spanking, I remember you mentioned before, like on the hand or anything like that.
Yeah.
Just to get their attention to like, sharpen their brain to be like, okay, I did something wrong.
Exactly.
So let me stand up straight and listen, right?
Yeah.
So that is necessary. Necessary, like, just a little bit, because certain kids kind of move like,
where they need that extra push, right? I mean, back to that historical point of view that you were making. I mean, I remember just learning about, because of within the slavery days, I think, the slaves had to, make sure that they were contributing or make sure that they were doing a desired task by their slave masters. And in order for these slave masters to ensure that their slaves were, doing what they were supposed to be doing, they made sure that their slaves were being disciplined. And it has me thinking, was this something that was passed down from the slaves to the slaves' children and so forth and so forth? And as we learn about, the Middle Passage and, Africans being pulled out of their home continent of Africa and distributed all over North America and all throughout the islands, and you see how big discipline is within the islands, I wonder, is this something that has been taken from that historical context, that historical point of view, right? Why is it such a common thing in the Caribbean? Because if you go to any Caribbean person, if you don't identify with them in some form of way or some way, it's always in the fact that you were disciplined. We always can relate on, about time I got disciplined with the belt. I'm like, yep, I remember the belt. There's always that, I can always relate on that standpoint. But then when you talk to students or individuals who are not from the Caribbean or who are not from, cultures where that's practiced, right? It becomes very interesting where they're like, I don't know, I've never gotten disciplined like that in a physical way. It's just, my parents would probably just tell me, advise me what I was doing was wrong and then let me reflect. So there's that imbalance there. So I would always wonder why there was that imbalance. So is it just a Western thing? Is it a Caribbean thing? We don't know, but we're going to find out and we're going to dissect this issue all when we come back after this commercial break. So stay tuned.
able to grow and evolve and create my very own label.
It's been a fantastic event.
This is my second year.
Great and awesome event connecting to the community.
So yeah, we urge you to join here. It's a great turnout.
So for those of you who are not here this year and have business, make sure that you're here next year because it's only going to get better every year.
So I will be back next year. So thank you. This is so awesome.
So people who aren't here, what would you tell them?
You're missing out. Come out and have some fun.
Welcome back, guys. If you're just tuning in, me and Dwayne here are having a good bantering session. Well, not necessarily bantering session, but we're having a good topic or conversation on the issue of spanking and its use in the 21st century. Its use in 2018. Is it useful? Can it still be used to shape our kids? Is it effective? So where we last left off is is it something that is only practiced in the Caribbean or other countries or other certain cultures? Why is there this imbalance within Western society? And that's leads me to my next question for you is, do you think the whole issue of spanking, is it still significant today? You know, is it still something that children still get spanked?
As mentioned by our producer,
Jordan, he mentioned a very, very good point. I don't know if you would like to reiterate what he said, but
yeah, because he did mention that it did die down, and to the point where now it's like, when you think back, it's like our parents were kind of stressed out.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, back
yeah.
when they first came to the country, and then they have all these kids with them, or they're having kids, and it's like they're trying to create a better life.
Absolutely.
And it's like, then you're there and you're not following rules and you're not being obedient and you're not
doing what you have to do,
helping them keep order or anything like that. So it's like, you know what, I gotta correct you. You know,
I gotta correct you.
So it's one of those things where I kind of understand, and my opinion on, even thinking about that, my opinion on it is just like, it's kind of like frustration. You know what I'm saying? It's like, there's different ways to discipline.
Yeah.
And I think the best way they knew how it was
to do that. I mean,
just spanking. Like, you know what I'm saying? They didn't really have the time, the patience to actually sit us down and talk to us and let us know, hey, listen, what you're doing right now is wrong, or it's not right at the moment. And I can understand whatever you're going through, or trying to understand the child at the same time. They never had that patience or the time to do it.
But then I do hear that, you know, back in those days, you know, children were meant to be seen and not heard. And, you know, pointing out from what Jordan said, yes, they were stressed. So the fact that you weren't doing your part after all the hard work that they've done to come to the country, create a better life for you, and you are just taking this gift that they've given you, and you don't even have to work half as hard like they have worked. And all that frustration and all that stress, you know, gets piled up, and they just may just smack you just for you to understand, listen, this is not a joke, right? So because of that, maybe that's why it seems so prevalent within certain cultures. But in regards to the significance that it has today in 2018, I'm finding a lot of students are not relating with me or relating to that one component of spanking. It's not a thing. And I work with students within the community, and I get to go inside their homes and I get to teach them, and I get to be part of their families. And you know, I see when they bring home report cards, I see when they get in trouble by their teachers and their principals, and I get to see firsthand. I'm like, someone's gonna get smacked, right? But it's not like that. There's more of a conversational there's a conversational dialect between you know, child and parent, and that's what I find so surprising. It's really different. This culture is moving away from that, actually.
Yeah, to interject.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not telling people how to raise their children
Oh,
or
that's
anything,
not what we're
anything
doing.
like that. But it's like, it's one of those things where I'm very observant when it comes to parenting, and I'm not gonna say people are bad at parenting, but it's parenting from when birth to the age of 18, where someone's old enough to actually live life on their own.
Yeah.
I think you have to teach or even be able to communicate with with children, right? Especially between like the ages of like birth and 5, right? I guess the first 5 years of life are the very most important parts of life, right?
Yeah.
So again, if you're not able to teach or be able to communicate with somebody, with a child or your own son or daughter at such a young age, to the point where they become like 12, 16, 18, and you still feel like it's necessary to beat them, and you can't just really pull them aside and say, hey, listen, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong? Like, you can't, and like just trying to understand them, but to feel, like, I understand that being a parent is an authoritative figure, and it's like, oh, I don't really need to talk to you.
Yeah.
It's either you listen or...
Yeah. I don't explain myself to you. You explain yourself to me, type of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But a lot of kids don't look at it that way. It's like, it's more of like, okay, again, when it comes to bad behavior, a lot of these kids just want attention.
Yeah.
So I think, again, it's the communication, as you said, right? So if you're able to communicate with children and teenagers and all this kind of like at an age, I think to the point where instead of having to beat them, they're able to talk to you.
Yeah.
So if something goes wrong, and like back when I was in school, it's like, okay, yeah, you get a bad grade and you come home and your parents are quick. Like, you know what I'm saying? They're ready to wind up and hit you in the back of the head.
Yeah.
And you're like, yo, I got a bad grade and no one's asked me why.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's just, your grades are bad.
Exactly.
And it's like, your grades are bad. And they'll ask you why and beat you, but never want to hear the answer why.
Exactly.
Right? So it's like,
yeah.
So they'll be like, why is your grades bad? And boom. And it's like, it's like, can I tell you now? And it's like, no, it don't matter. Do better next time.
Exactly.
But so, like, I know there's some kids who have learning disabilities.
Yeah.
And
or
a lot of parents don't even know that.
Yeah.
You know
Or
what I'm
self-esteem issues.
So again, like, there's a lot of things, a lot of factors.
A lot of barriers to education, to learning.
Like, so when these kids are having these kind of issues, and no one even ever tries to like understand them or tackle them.
Yeah.
And again, in our community, in our culture, there's no such thing as mental health issues or learning disabilities.
Absolutely.
It's either you get it or you don't. You know what I'm saying? And if you don't get it, you get hit.
Exactly.
So that's basically the premise of like discipline and punishment to them.
And don't get us wrong, we're not here to bash our culture, because we love our culture. We're not here to bash anyone's cultures, but what we're trying to do is raise awareness and talk about the issues that stem within cultures all around the world that face the same issue, which is spanking. So that's what Here to Help is. That's what Here to Help You is all about, is to raise these controversial issues, these issues that nobody likes to talk about, and talk about them and create a safe space where we can say our opinions, say our feelings, and really get to the bottom of these issues. And it's funny, I was doing some research, and being the legal component of Here to Help that I like to provide, there's actually something called the spanking law. The spanking law is it can be found in the criminal code, and it was implemented in 1892.
And this is in Canada?
This is in Canada.
Okay.
And can you believe, since this code has been implemented, nothing much has been revised about this code. It still remains the same. So I'm going to give you a little bit of history on the spanking law in Canada. So basically,
to be honest, I was taught that being spanked here was illegal, but
absolutely,
there's a code and a law for it.
Absolutely,
okay, yeah, but go on. Sorry.
No, but you're absolutely right. I had no idea this thing this law existed. So for me to find out about this law is very interesting. But I'm just gonna I'm gonna read something for you guys. So in the criminal code, section 43 of the criminal code, section 1, it states every school teacher, parent, or person standing in place of a parent, such as a step person like a stepdad or a stepmother, is justified in using force by way of correction towards a pupil or child, as the case may be, who is under his care if the force does not exceed what is reasonable under circumstances. All right, so this is what this section in the code states. Now, in January 30th, 2004, the Supreme Court of Canada released a decision to amend it because they thought that this section in the code was unlawful. They thought it was cruel, it was unjust to have some type of law like this, stating that, teachers, in the event of you're acting up, I can discipline a child, or the teacher can discipline a child. They thought it was cruel, and they thought it was severe punishment. And after a vote amongst a certain amount of judges, they decided not to get rid of it. Okay. So this is something that is still in Canadian law till this day. And what I found,
beating your children is okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Under reasonable circumstances. So
what's reasonable circumstances?
And this is where we honestly no.
Imagine your kid being beaten by a teacher, and your mom comes and starts like, "Yo, why you beat my child?"
Reasonable circumstances. And the thing is, as I was reading more upon this law, it said that this law was introduced, to, I guess, as a protection for teachers, for parents. So if a teacher were to, use physical punishment towards a child, this spanking law would be used as a protector for them. So this is what I found very interesting. But as you know, I had no idea this was basically legal. But we're going to talk more as we come back and learn more about this law. So yeah.
Think you have what it takes to bring value to the community? The TCN TV network is expanding and now accepting TV show proposals. Here's an opportunity to build celebrity status and become part of an elite group of community advocates that are focused on building, strengthening, and empowering our community in a positive way. Are you interested in embarking on a new adventure? TCN TV is searching for people interested in opportunities to change the conversation and pave an unforgettable legacy. If you feel you have something of value to offer, send a written show proposal to shows@mytcntv.com.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
You Dwayne's over here making me laugh and just saying all types of reckless. Welcome back, guys, to Here to Help You. But before we ended, we are talking about the spanking law, and a law that's very much legal in Canada. So if you're just tuning in, it states that every teacher, any person acting in the place of a parent or a parent can use reasonable force or is justified in using force by way of correction towards a child, as the case may be, who is under his care, if the force does not exceed what is reasonable under circumstances. Now, as to add, basically, so the Canadian Foundation of Children, Youth and Laws basically thought that this was unconstitutional. They thought it was cruel. They said, we need to get rid of this law right away. It's cruel. It's unusual punishment towards child. We need to scrap it. All right? And they decided 6 out of 9 justices, so 6 out of 9 judges decided that it does not infringe on a child's Charter of Rights and Freedoms rights. It does not infringe.
Because children don't have rights, right?
That's a very good point, even though they do. But they decided that it does not infringe on their rights. It does not violate the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And therefore, it does not need to be scrapped. So with that being said, what do you think about this law?
Well, yeah, it's funny because I was before, as you said, I was mentioning that, like,
yeah,
in Jamaica, or even probably the Caribbean, but like in Jamaica, like my mom used to tell me, like, they'd make trouble in school, you get beaten by the teachers. And if that news get passed down to your parents before she even get home, like the whole block will beat you. Like your neighbor's parents, and
everybody,
everyone will beat you before you get home.
Exactly.
So when you get home, your mom's just like, so I heard you're causing trouble at school, and she'll beat you too. So, and then it's kind of funny that it's like, well, because my mom always said like, oh, the whole it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know about the Western culture, even up here. Like, I know for a fact, if a teacher had to beat a student
in Canada,
I know a lot of parents wouldn't like that.
Yeah,
a lot of parents would not like that. Don't even matter if they are Caribbean. They would probably be like, "Yo,
don't touch my child.
Don't beat my child," because we don't. Because a lot of, again, I want to relate this to like the whole. I don't want to bring this up, but I'm going to bring it up anyways. But
Go
I think
for
in
it.
the States, the gun laws.
Yes.
They actually talked about how teachers should be able to carry guns.
Yes.
And that's crazy because, again, teachers are doing such a stressful job. Like, they're basically babysitting kids. Like, you know what I'm saying?
And they're
like,
human. At the end of the day, teachers are human.
Human, right? So they're babysitting kids and they're going through stress. Imagine a teacher walking through a school with a whole bunch of stress on their shoulder, and they're just like, and a kid says something to them, say, you know, I'm gonna dun you today. I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of it. You know what I'm saying? So like,
oh my god.
So with a teacher being able to beat their kids in like North America, right? Like, yo, like imagine your kid, like your 6-year-old kid in grade 1 not listening to the teacher because he's 6. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're just like, yo, we're gonna have to bend you over and spank you now. It's like, for what? You're not listening to me. It's like.
But can you believe this law was enacted in 1892? So imagine 1892 to 2018. Look at that gap. No revisions. The only revision was in 2004, and that wasn't even a revision. It was just basically to see if a decision to see if they should get rid of it or not. And they decided that this law made in 1892 does not infringe on a child's Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And I just find it very hypocritical because in British Columbia, and this was I think in 2016, in British Columbia, a couple were charged with assault for using a plastic hockey stick to beat their child. Their child was 14-year-old daughter. So they used a plastic hockey stick to beat their 14-year-old daughter and a skipping rope. And they were charged. So this leads me to the point that if the spanking law is a law that's implemented to protect the parent, to protect the teacher, to protect that step parent that takes the place of a parent.
And then it goes back to you mentioning, well, reasonable under circumstances.
That's
right?
absolutely.
Like, in my case, I don't believe. Well, my opinion, I'll say it's not reasonable to beat somebody with a hockey stick.
A plastic hockey stick.
Plastic or wooden. It's not. I don't think it's reasonable to use like a stick to beat somebody. I don't think it's reasonable to use a rope
to beat somebody.
But
yeah.
So, and again, some cultures find it's all right to pick up anything closest to them and beat somebody.
Yeah,
with, right? So.
Absolutely. And the way how this case ended is the fact that they were given a conditional discharge. No, so for all those who are not really familiar with the legal jargon, might I call it, a conditional discharge is basically a sentence that's passed in criminal court that basically says that the individuals are found guilty, however, that there is no conviction unless you follow certain conditions. So if you follow certain conditions and you complete them, then there isn't a conviction that goes against your criminal record. Right? So they were given a conditional discharge, and the article didn't explain if the child was able to go back and live with their parents, but the article did make some reference to the fact that the reason why they did it is because they're very they call themselves Bible thumpers, and they believe that in the Bible it allowed them to discipline their child in that way, and that was an actual
the rod, spoil the child.
Exactly. And on our way here, Dwayne and I were talking about that. Spare the rod, spoil the child, and they actually brought up that same verse that in their culture or in their religion they are allowed to do this, but as you can see, they were charged for this assault, and it makes you see how flawed not even just law is, but it shows you how flawed the system can be, because you have this law, and like Dwayne said, reasonable. There was no reasonable force used in this situation. The skipping rope and a plastic hockey stick, not so much. But we have a law that says that it's there to protect the parents. And then this is something, and this law wasn't even considered once the parents were able to fight for or were able to be in court. This wasn't even a law that they were able to bring up. Now, let me add, now if I could play the devil's advocate for a moment, if they did bring up this law in court, of course this would be turned down, because then you have that keyword of reasonable, right?
Because
so they,
I think in their minds of like reasonable spanking is with the hand,
exactly,
anything like that, right? So
exactly, or maybe like your 2 fingers, or just like you said, the hand. But a hockey stick or plastic hockey stick and a skipping rope probably doesn't suffice in that situation.
Again, to be honest, it's considered a weapon. So now, illegally, if a kid was smart enough to sit there and say, "Yeah, I consider that a weapon," they use a weapon against me, so
absolutely,
they're attacking me.
So,
you know what I'm saying?
So now the funny thing about this is this law is still legal to this day. So my question to you, Dwayne, is: should we get rid of the law? Should we keep the law? Should we amend it? What should we do? What do you even think about this law? Because remember, just by looking at it, there's a lot of components here that a lot of old components that I see that it needs to be revised. Do you think it needs to be revised?
I would say revise it for the actual parents themselves.
Okay.
I wouldn't keep it so broad and open for like anybody.
Okay.
To just spank children.
Okay.
Just because you're under guardian. Because like, to be honest, if I was a babysitter, I'm basically the legal guardian at that moment.
Exactly.
So I'm allowed to spank your child.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't want my child to be with the babysitter and being spanked by the babysitter.
That's true.
Without my consent.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Or I wouldn't want a teacher to spank my child while I'm at work without my consent. Because I don't really know. Again, at the end of the day, it's their words against the child. And majority, again, by the law, children don't even look like they're considered human. So, I'm looking, it's like, yo, you get to beat the child, and like you have you talk to the teacher and they only explain themselves, and you have the kid explain themselves. You're not gonna really listen to them. So
exactly, it's just like, whose side are you gonna take?
So yeah, so I'd keep it towards the parents alone.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, because you're gonna have like people from like the Caribbeans or Africa or Asia or Western Europe come over with their kind of beliefs, and they're gonna spank their children. And let's say the kid goes to school hurt or something happens to them, and someone sees something, the mark on them, and it's like, what happened? And they somehow, for some reason, explain that they got beat.
Yeah.
Legally, a teacher's right to actually be like, hey, what happened at home? And now certain people get involved, and it becomes kind of a big problem when it shouldn't be. So if they revise that law just for parents itself, where parents are legally allowed to spank their child, and if anything is brought up in court, you just mention that law, and it's like, okay, cool, that's your kid, you're just teaching them, you know what I'm saying? Like,
now I'm just gonna broaden the question spectrum for a bit. Do you think that maybe we should develop some form of law? I know we're about to go on our next commercial, but do you think we should develop some form of law that is guaranteed or targeted to people who want to come to a country like Canada, and you know, they're coming from countries with their own values and you know, systems when it comes to corporal punishment? So do you think that in 10 seconds? Do you think that we should amend something like that?
In 10 seconds?
Yeah. We're going to let you think about that, you know? So think about that on the commercial break. We'll be right back.
Doing this event for the community. But what if CEO actually stood for catching every opportunity?
This week alone, I've seen 3 businesses that shut their doors in this community.
Investing in yourself. Like, you have to know what your brand is first. So there's no other way that you're going to build a brand unless you network. You have to eventually get out there.
And it stems down to a lot of times not having the right knowledge, the right know-how.
Welcome back, guys. So, before we left, I posed a question to you guys about, do you think that if the whole corporal punishment controversial issue, if it's such an issue in Canada, do you think that we should try to create different policies and laws for people coming to Canada, you know what I mean, who are coming with their own, not really value systems, but in that regard when it comes to physical discipline, so that they are aware that, this is a country where you can't pick up a brick and hit at your 2-year-old child. You know what I mean? Do you think we should implement that so when they get here, they can't plead, oh, you know what, I didn't know, or you know what, in my culture we do this, so this is, you know what I mean? Do you think we should amend something in the immigration area of our Canadian law system? Do you think that would even help?
Yeah, to revise it, but it's like, again, parents are parents. Like, at the end of the day, like, they've been raised a certain way and they've been living by a certain standard their whole entire life. You're not going to be able to abolish it.
Yeah.
So you can bring in laws and create laws. They're going to look at the laws and laugh at the laws and be like, okay, because like, it's funny because like Russell Peters, he laughs all, like, he makes jokes about his parents saying, hey, listen, you want to call children's service after I beat you? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Call them. Like, you know
I'll
what I'm
hand you
saying?
the phone.
They call them. Like, so, like, a lot of the laws to them it's kind of laughable because it's like, if I'm going to discipline my child a certain way, it's going to, for them, they're looking at, the kid, Jordan said this before, it's like the kid kind of considered property.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna strip my child away from me, then fine, it's cool, take him. Like, he's causing so much trouble, take him. Like, let someone else raise him. Like, you know what I'm saying? And to be honest, the kid probably might feel a lot worse than their parents going away. It's like, to be honest, I'd rather be beaten by them than go somewhere else.
That's where I don't know the people.
Where I don't know the people, like, and those people could do a lot worse.
Exactly.
Because even like you hear stories how people go into foster homes or anything like that, and they get treated like trash.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So
absolutely. Well, I'm gonna pose a question to you. So
another question.
Or you could pose a question to me if you like.
Oh no, it's okay. I'll answer your question first.
Okay, so my question for you would be, were you physically disciplined, and do you think that shaped you for the better, for the worse, or did it even shape you at all? Do you think it was effective?
It wasn't effective, and I'm not saying that I'm a terrible person, but I'm saying that, like, I did get beaten, and the beatings didn't really help, but I understand them. So I can understand the beatings behind everything. The only thing that shaped me the most was the teachings behind them. Okay. I think it was more so of, if I got beat and my mom pulled me aside and said, you know what, this is why I did this. And I'm just like, okay, why did you do it? And then she goes, you acted a certain way, and I don't know why you did it. You weren't listening. You weren't this and that. And then she would talk to me and say, this is where you went wrong, and I want you to do better. Yeah. Like, at least there was like a communication. Yeah. I was actually spoken to. Like, at least spoken to like a human being, at least. You know what I'm saying? Like, my feelings were considered. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Like, you made a mistake. I understand you made a mistake. But next time, this mistake could actually be a lot worse than me beating you. Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? A lot of parents don't do that. So, again, it goes back to frustration. Yeah. It's like, a lot of parents beat their kids just out of frustration. They'd come home after a long day, angry because there's a one spoon in the sink. Like, you know what I'm saying? And you come look at the one spoon, you're like, yo, Dwayne, come here. And you're like, what? Yo, you didn't wash the dishes? And you're like, yo, there's one spoon in the sink, and then you just get a nice, good lick across your head. Right? And you're like, why did I get hit? Because there's one spoon in the sink. Like, why is that such a bad thing? Yeah. So I think it's more so the lessons than the beatings. Because, like, you can actually, I seen a video of a parent. 4 boys. She told them to go to bed. 10 o'clock at night. Go to bed. She heard them talking all night. Go to bed. She heard them talking. She told them, you know what? Come down. They came downstairs. Yeah. What Caribbean parents, most parents of like overseas would probably beat them, but you know what she said? Everybody line up right there. We're gonna do push-ups, and she made them all do push-ups until she felt ready to send them back to their bed. So like, think about it. Like, they're all doing push-ups, balling, and I'm like, and she did it. It's just like, yo, you guys are balling, and then you didn't want to go to bed when I told you to go to bed. So we're gonna do them push-ups. Like, stop balling. You were talking a lot. You were making a whole bunch of noise before. So why you guys crying now? So I think like even the push-ups, workout, get your kids to work out to discipline them if you're because to be honest, you leave no bruises, you leave no scars, and they're gonna be hurt for like 2 to 3 days.
What is their muscles? Their muscles are gonna be hurt.
Listen, I go to the gym sometimes, and the next day I'm hurt, and I don't want to lift up anything.
Exactly.
So if I know that my mom's gonna beat, if my mom tells me, yo, do 10 push-ups and 30 push-ups today, and tomorrow discipline me the same way, I'm gonna be like, you know what? No, I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
My arm's still hurt. I can't do the 30 push-ups you want me to do today that I did yesterday.
Absolutely.
So you kind of like there's different forms of disciplining your kids physically if you want to do that. You know, make them work out, become big and strong. You know, you want to be a big man.
Like you, right?
You want to be a big man, become a big man. You know, do your push-ups, do some sit-ups. Yeah. You know? So again, there's different forms. Like I don't think the beatings raised me, like helped me at all, but I gotta say the lessons did help me. I think a lot of people should consider different ways of discipline,
different approaches.
Different approaches. It's like you don't really have to hit them. Like
I'd be lying if I said that I didn't get a thump here and there, you know, or I get slapped here and there. But I mean, I think my issues is that I was disrespectful, and I think the thing that I appreciate my mom for doing sometimes is she'd be like, listen, Brittany, like, I don't appreciate when you talk to me that way. And, you know, it's like, the funny thing is, at the end of each, like, every time I got hit, it's not like I didn't know why I got hit. I knew why. You know, I knew that I took the fault for that. Like, it was my fault. Did it shape me? I just feel like, did it shape me to be a better person? I would say no. And the reason why I say no is because eventually I grew up. And the funny thing is, you can only discipline your child so much. Because I think there's this age where there's a barrier that forms over your skin. And when you get slapped, it's nothing. And then your parents get so mad because it's not effective anymore.
Because, like, to be considered, like, my mom stopped beating me at around 12. Because actually, like, around 14, I'm just like, oh, yeah, that hurt. And then I'd walk off and still cause trouble. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, like, don't beat me no more. And then she's just like, okay, you learn your lesson? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. And I walk away with a smile on my face. And it's like, okay, good. Like,
yeah.
I'd rather deal with that.
Or if you are powerful, when you get older, you realize that you're able to outrun your parents. Yeah. So when they start to chase you, you know you're not going to get beat.
My mom laughed.
They have to catch you.
You're eventually going to come back. If you run outside, you're eventually going to
come back.
You're going to have to go to sleep sometimes. So it's like, okay, run. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, just take your abuse. Just take the punishment now instead of just waiting for it. Because you're just going to make them more angry. Yeah. But in regards to... in that way, how it shaped me, I just think that as I got older, I see the lessons behind it, but there are different ways that I would approach the issue. Yeah. So how do you think children of 2018, because this is a new generation of children, this is different. Remember, there's a lot of technology out there. There's a lot of, distractions out there. There's so many resources that we have now that you and I probably didn't have back then. So how would you say that the new millennial, the new child, the 2018 child should be disciplined? Would you still agree with finding different ways like that mother with the push-ups?
These kids are a lot smarter. They're too smart for their own good. So it's like, you beat them now, it's not going to really go that far in life, because it's like, they know there's a lot of resources to defend them. Like,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
So it's like, okay, beat me, and then it's like, whatever. They can probably counter that. But at the same time, again, different forms of discipline. Like, take things away from them that they love.
Yeah.
Take those things like their cell phone. Those kids can't live without their cell phone.
Not in 2018.
Like, that's worse than a beating.
Yeah.
Like, that's worse than a beating. Take their phone away. Take their games away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Have them not hang out with their friends. Take certain things that they cherish. Away from them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You can even do workouts. Like, have them do push-ups, sit-ups,
and just talk to them like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Talk to them like human beings.
Exactly.
Like treat them like people. Once you start treating children like people, I think those children are actually gonna act like people.
Yeah.
Act like adults.
Absolutely.
It's like once you start treating like children and acting like animals, it's like they're gonna be acting like animals.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we just wanna. That's it for our show. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Simone and Dave will be back next week with more on their UK trip. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Salute.